So, welcome to our podcast, Good Friends, Good Medicine, East Meets West. We have had some technical difficulties, and I am hopeful that this time we may actually get this one off. So, this is episode 12, and I'm joined by my good friend, TJ Frank. TJ, how you doing, brother?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks, Tom. Aloha. Checking in from Maui, Hawaii. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner trained to the master's level of Oriental medicine and a licensed acupuncturist.
Fantastic, bro. Mate. It's so good to have you on the show. I'm excited. So I'm a GP working out of Mullumbimby in New South Wales. And we have a topic for today, which is fibromyalgia. I'm looking forward to jumping in. How about yourself?
Great. And the format we'll follow is that of usual. We'll have Tom describe the Western outlook and perspective on the disease or syndrome and break it down from etiology, pathogenesis, how it happens, what populations it happens in. And then I'll do the same from a Chinese medicine perspective, how we see it, the pathology associated, and the differentiation, the different causes of it. And then Tom will go through the available treatments from a Western allopathic perspective, and then I'll go through the set of treatments available from a Chinese medicine perspective. And then at the end, we'll have a free form of discussion on how to bring the two techniques into the greatest amalgam to serve people.
I think it's a great format, mate. Really good, solid format, and yeah, we'll see what alchemy comes through.
Right on.
Let's jump in. So fibromyalgia, from Western perspective, it's an interesting disease. It's reasonably common, 2 to 5% on some estimates of the population. Classic patient, young to middle-aged women, and previously was thought to be, oh, what kind of disease is this? Is this a real disease? But now the thoughts are that this is a disease of central nervous system sensitization. So that's the underlying pathology of this. Classic kind of presenting symptoms for it. If the patient says, I hurt all over, or I always seem to have the flu, they're like, okay, there's a kind of like classic, all right, fibromyalgia's got to be in the differential for this. But the three main parts from the diagnosis for me is a persistent and widespread pain all over the body for at least 3 months. So it's a chronic, heading into chronicity, but widespread musculoskeletal pain. The other two very common features are poor quality sleep, and so the patient is waking unrefreshed, and also a persistent fatigue. So between those three things, that would make up a classic triad for fibromyalgia: widespread pain, plus fatigue, plus poor quality sleep. Often, the patients will also describe cognitive dysfunction, so problems with concentration, problems with memory, apparently colloquially known as fibro fog, so the brain just doesn't seem to work properly. And also they commonly will have anxiety and depression that may be linked in, probably just from having a chronic disease that isn't particularly resolvable. And typically they'll have functional impairment in their activities of daily living. So it actually does have a significant impact on these patients. On examination, the main finding is that they are tender to palpation of the body, both sides of the body, above and below the waist, all over, that they're actually tender. But there's not inflammation, there's not joint swelling, there's not erythema. It doesn't seem to be a disease of inflammation. And if that's there, that would lead to thoughts around, okay, could this be something else? In investigations for me, typically they should have normal investigations. So blood count's going to be normal. It's not going to show an immune system rise. So the white cell's going to be normal. There's not going to be inflammatory markers such as an ESR or CRP. They're not going to be raised, and the thyroid measures should be normal as well. So that's the overall picture. Just from a differential point of view, things that I would be thinking about would be like, say, rheumatoid arthritis. Could it be rheumatoid? But they would typically have joint swelling. Could it be systemic lupus erythematosus? They probably would have a facial rash. It's a very classic facial rash. Diseases like ankylosing spondylitis, which is normally going to affect the back, and they would have back problems in that, versus in fibromyalgia, I would not expect that. Polymyalgia rheumatica, elevated inflammatory markers should be present. And then chronic infections, there should be serological markers. And as far as we can tell, fibromyalgia does not have an underlying infection as its cause. And then so thyroid disease, are they actually hypothyroid? That should show up on the thyroid screen, the thyroid stimulating hormone blood test. So there are a bunch of other things that could be going on, but with those three classic things, that should be high in the probability for the diagnosis. So yeah, all right, mate. That's what I got from the Western perspective for diagnosing fibro. What do you got? How do you see this?
I really like those rule outs. Man, that's clean. It's tight. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
God,
thank you.
That's where the serological exams and getting the SED rates and getting the inflammation markers to rule out the inflammatory. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's really nice to be able to rule them out like that. A great example of how I could use Western medicine diagnostically to help my treatment process. And that being said, in China, where I practiced in Nanjing, the acupuncturists had hospital privileges, and they worked together in that way. They put herbs in the IV bags, and the acupuncturist can get exams. Regardless, another subject someday.
Someday, yeah.
Someday. So to answer your question, and for the subject at hand in fibromyalgia, in Chinese medicine, we call fibromyalgia a B syndrome. B is just a term for impediment or stagnation. They call it GB, is fibromyalgia in specific, translating as muscle impediment disorder. And that's what you were talking about as well with touching the body, as far as like the ankylosing spondylitis would be more of a back type thing, and it's not usually found there. It's because this is more of a soft tissue related pathology. Most people's pain with fibromyalgia, it's soft tissue when I touch them. I don't even get to bone level. Hurt. I'm sure their bones hurt too. I just would never go that, like they're painful to the touch. So GB is muscle impediment disorder, and we agree historically that there's three main subtypes that collaboratively make this condition: fatigue, depression, and insomnia. Those are the three classifying disorders associated with generalized body pain. Shu Lao is fatigue or fatuity. Wu Xiang is depression, and Shi Mian is insomnia. So this is how they're classically described in their texts. And knowing those three is useful because the relative ratio determines the treatment in specific. If somebody's got, and it's an extremely useful diagnostic criterion. For instance, if it's a fatigue associated, it's going to most likely be a spleen qi deficiency. Could be kidney or heart qi below that, but it's going to be a deficiency. The depression one is going to be the liver qi stagnation, and the insomnia one is going to be the heart blood deficiency and heart qi deficiency. So depending on where a person's presenting would offer where we would put our therapeutic leverage. The main core of this whole pathology typically is best explained through the 5-element model of Chinese medicine, where there's universal laws that affect everything in the world, inside and outside of the body. And if you want to understand what's going on inside the body, one could look outside of ourselves to understand the inside. These are ancient theories. They're metaphors to understand what's going on inside. And the Chinese say the mountains collect the rain and the water feeds the wood creates the fire, and the fire creates the earth, and the earth creates the mountains, the metal, which create the water, and that's a generating cycle. Within that, there's a controlling cycle. So the roots of the tree crumble the earth, and the earth controls the water, and the water controls the fire, and the fire controls the metal, and the metal controls the wood, and the wood controls the earth. So this is the general aspect of 5-elemental theory. Any of our listeners can look it up. It's a foundational principle of Chinese medicine. I mention all of this because the earth controls the water. It's the riverbed that holds the river as a river. It's the lake that holds the lake as the lake. And if the earth is weak, the water floods everywhere. And that's the main metaphor in Chinese medicine for fibromyalgia. It's a water flood throughout the entire body. The tissue's not holding the water where it needs to be. And all the cells, this is how I see it, are totally swollen up with water. So no matter where you touch them, it hurts. They're just, the tissue, it's an interstitial fluid edematous type situation. I don't know if it'd be to a clinically significant level diagnostically. If you could test it, I don't know. But according to the Chinese, it's a flooding of fluid through the tissue that creates the pain wherever you touch it. The water's flooded the earth. That's the metaphor. Now the interesting thing is, how does that happen? We got a lot of different ways that this can happen. The most common way is liver overacting spleen stomach. The same metaphor, the 5 elements. If somebody's too livery, they're just growing plan, growing plan. They're not taking the time to nourish themselves. They'll go past their nourishment and the spleen will become weak, and then the water can back up. Now, in my research for this podcast, that's where I caught myself in the mistake. Is because that's so common, I thought in my own clinical practice that was what the pathology was. But once I reviewed it, I'm like, oh yeah, there's other causes too. So just according to Chinese medicine, 8 principles: interior, exterior, excess deficiency, yin, yang, hot, cold. So in Chinese medicine, no matter what somebody comes to us with, we put them through that machine, that algorithm. So is this something from the outside coming in? This is where you're talking about rheumatoid arthritis. We would say potentially osteoarthritis, a subclinical type of osteoarthritis. If somebody's constantly exposed to wind, cold, and damp, the tissue will get damp, cold, and stagnant, and they'll get point tenderness in a region of their body that'll eventually distribute through more of their body. It's not a true fibromyalgia where it'd be in the entire body. Initially, it'll usually start in one area that's sensitive to the wind, damp, cold. This type of case would be cold to the touch in an area. It'd be somebody who's been exposed to a lot of wind, cold, and damp and is averted to wind, cold, and damp. The pulse will be floating and choppy. The tongue will have a thick white coat. So that's the main external cause. Like we also recognize that with the rheumatoid arthritis, they're going to have tenderness, but it's going to be red. It's going to be hot. They're going to have RA markers. So even though they got tenderness at a spot, that doesn't mean fibromyalgia. It's got to have generalized dispersion over the entire body through the soft tissue to point tenderness with fatigue, depression, and insomnia. Now we're looking at fibromyalgia. All right, so getting back to the 8 principles on the internal, there's an internal excess that leads to fibromyalgia that, once again, I don't think of much because I just don't see it happening very much. And this one's just straight up liver cheese stagnation to the point that the liver is so tight that the blood flow is so impeded that it's generalized blood stagnation through the whole body. Wow. So it's not a spleen deficiency, water not being controlled flood of the earth. This is just generalized blood stagnation through the whole body. It's like, yeah, it can get there. It can get there. But most people that have liver cheese stagnation seek medical care because they've got pain or irritability or insomnia or tinnitus or vertigo or any of the sequela of liver cheese stagnation, or they self-medicate themselves with exercising, bicycling, oversex, any of these other methods to disperse the liver qi. Most people find a way to manage their liver qi, or they just turn into a raging lunatic and scream and yell at everybody and get it out before it blocks the blood. But nonetheless, that being said, clinically speaking, one of the interior excess etiologies for Chinese medicine differentiation in fibromyalgia is liver qi stagnation to blood stagnation. All right, so I had to honor that.
Yeah.
I had to honor that. Now, liver cheese stagnation will often, if somebody's so angry, the plan's getting blocked, they'll swallow their anger and they'll hold it in and then it'll bomb the gut. And that's the more common pathology. The tongue will be quivery and tight, but it'll be puffy and swollen, or it'll be purple and swollen with teeth marks, or it'll be deviated purple and swollen. Any of those is liver overacting, spleen, stomach. There's another internal excess, damp heat excess. If somebody is just in a damp heat environment, now in Chinese medicine, we think of the body as a particle cloud in symbiosis to our environment. It's not as fixed as the visual would allow. So if somebody's in a really damp heat environment, they'll have more damp heat in the body. And then that'll create the same effect of the water overacting the earth, but it's not an internal disharmony. This is outside damp heat. You can also get a lot of damp heat from just eating too much spicy, greasy foods and like just ridiculous damp heat all the time.
How does the damp heat cause the water to go over?
Well, damp is damp. Damp is water.
Right, okay.
So it's just the body can only process so much water until it doesn't know where to put it and starts packing it up in the cells.
Okay, got it. Yep, cool.
It's just dampness. It just could only assimilate and distribute so much of it until the sponge is full.
Yep.
But usually if a sponge was full, the water would leak out. But this is a sponge in the sausage. The water can't come out. So you put more, and it just gets tight. Wherever you push it, it hurts.
It's a great analogy, the sponge in the sausage. That's so cool.
It's, you know what I mean? That's the tissue. It's the microfibril network matrix that makes up the cytoskeleton and the fascia. That's holding the water of the body in place. We all know the body is a significant portion of water. This water is not random. It's highly organized, it's crystalline, and it's held in the microfibril structure of the body. There's only so much space.
Yep, cool.
All right, so, we've talked about the interior excesses, damp heat, qi and blood stagnation, liver qi stagnation. Moving on to the interior deficiencies, the most prevalent problem by far, hands down, is spleen qi deficiency. The spleen in Chinese medicine is a digestive organ. It's not common. We also say that it recycles the blood, and it's very important for blood generation as an organ. In Western medicine, the main role of the spleen, correct me if I'm wrong, is to recycle the old blood cells.
Yeah.
This is a digestive organ in Chinese medicine, and it likes to stay warm. So if somebody eats a lot of cold food all the time, just iceberg lettuce. I've seen a lot of fibromyalgia clients, a lot, that have come say, I was trying to lose weight, I only ate salad, and now all I'm doing is gaining weight. That means they've blown out their spleen to yang. They don't have the heat anymore in their spleen, and the water's starting to back up. That client's going to get fibromyalgia if they continue staying on a lettuce diet. Spleen qi deficiency can happen from over worry, bad diet, a diet that's too much food, and too much raw cold food. And spleen qi can come from liver overacting the spleen. Those are the main things with spleen qi deficiency. The spleen also generates blood. So if there's not enough blood being generated, the heart gets disturbed in Chinese medicine, and that leads to the insomnia component. So the next internal deficiency is heart qi deficiency, heart blood deficiency. So if the spleen qi is deficient, eventually it'll lead to the insomnia component. And then the last of them is kidney yang deficiency. The kidney yang is the source of yang for the entire body, and it provides the heat under the cauldron, which is the stomach, to break down the food. The fires from the kidney yang that goes to the spleen yang that warms the food in the stomach. And if the spleen yang goes deficient because of too much cold raw food, then eventually the kidney yang goes out as well. When the kidney yang goes out, person has erectile dysfunction, dribbling of urine, harder time controlling the urine. That'd be one of the best signs of a kidney yang deficiency. Plus just the fatigue, solace, dark circles under the eyes. A spleen qi deficiency person's going to have the puffy tongue, bubbly gut after food, borborygmus, undigested food out of the stool. The spleen qi deficiency person is the one with the lassity. The heart qi deficiency person is the one that's going to have the insomnia and the decreased memory. And the irritability one with anger, frustration, and fatigue is going to be the liver qi stagnation with the spleen liver qi stagnation with the spleen qi deficiency. So that's personality diagnostic wise. Pulses, once spleen's going to be spleen qi deficiency, will be floody, which means when you touch it, there's not much below it, but it'll be like, you'll feel the blood moving, but it's diffuse. It's not like a nice round pulse. The kidney yang deficiency in the chur position and the one higher up, it'll be hollow compared to the sun and the guan. This is a little more advanced than for lay public.
Yeah.
But I figure I might as well just expose. There will be some practitioners interested. And yeah, okay. That gives you an idea of how we diagnose it.
I really
differentiation.
I really like the showing how the symptoms are the underlying pathologies relate to the symptoms. It was the heart qi deficiency causing the insomnia, the general flooding causing the muscles. I mean, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Really
Isn't that nice?
So nice.
Yeah, because we both agree that there's those three harbinger main signs under the diffuse pain: the fatigue, depression, insomnia. And this is a way that, it shows which organ to treat.
Yeah, because pathogenesis-wise in Western medicine, it's a real struggle. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I was going to call you on that, but I didn't. It's like, okay, so central nervous system, what? And then what's the pathophysiology? How does that link to this disorder? Like, how can you just, it's central nervous system dysfunction. Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How does that, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, like, honestly, what's the pathophysiology of that?
So there's some functional MRI studies that show some dysfunction of the brain. I mean, it's in these people, there's maybe some biopsy of small nerve fibers. It's pretty sketchy. I was like, we're really clutching at straws here. And I do wonder about when they biopsy in the preparation of the actual slides, whether they take out all the water, so you can't see it. So, like to actually fix the slides.
That's a good point. That is a good point.
Yeah, so it looks the same. It's like, well, but there's no, if the sausages and the sponge is full, and then to make the slide, you got to squeeze the sponge, it's going to look normal. Yeah. So really interesting. That's cool. Yeah.
There's a case study another one that I got caught off guard on recently. It was a spleen qi deficiency from liver qi stagnation with liver fire flaring up, disturbing the heart. So this particular one, the tongue was red and hot and deviated with cracks all over it. So I just got so lazy to think all fibromyalgia is spleen qi deficiency with retention of damp, because from that I assumed that's what, and then I looked at the tongue and I'm like, what? I mean, the liver was so tight. I mean, she was so, like, at the end of her life, she had adopted a bunch of foster kids, took care of all of them, was finally done with it, wanted to move to Hawaii. She had the whole plan. Her husband said, no, I'm not going. She said, I'm going anyway. I'm doing it. She stayed on her plan, but the earth just crumbled. Her nourishment source left, and she was just angry and just, I want to be held. I want to be nourished. I deserve to be nourished. I had raised all these kids, and then no one's here for me. The earth just was crumbling. The liver was so tight, and the fire was raging. And man, it was like, it forced me to review my pathology. It's like, it's not always spleen qi deficiency with damp. That was the gift. I mean, what a beauty. And that particular case, Western medicine worked great because they put her on furosemide, diuretic.
Yeah.
And she just peed the water out, and it was gone. It was, it was great. We do the same thing. Now we're getting into therapeutics.
We're getting into therapeutics. And
we do the same thing. Just our diuretic methods are softer and buffered. So now that we've broached the subject, go ahead into
So I'd like to flag a topic at the end in terms of if we give furosemide to the spleen deficiency patients, how would you see that play out? So I'm just going to flag that for later, but let's jump in, because strangely enough, furosemide did not appear in any of the treatments that I found. So I'd like to come back to that at the end. But it's a great idea.
Great. This is benefiting both fields. Great.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump in. Classic fibromyalgia. It ends up as a chronic disease for us. We do not have a particular cure. But from a pharmacological point of view, I got a couple of starting points. One is amitriptyline, which is a tricyclic antidepressant. It has sleep-inducing effects. It has pain reduction effects. So that's typically a starting point. From there, if that doesn't work, there's two other options that we typically would have. One is duloxetine, which is a serotonin noradrenaline reuptake inhibitor with pain reduction. So this is commonly used in neurological pain. It has some antidepressant effects, so it can be helpful for people. And then the last one, kind of in the initial pharmacological, is pregabalin, which is an anticonvulsant, but also has anti-pain, particularly used commonly in neuropathic pain. So there are three kind of go-tos. Beyond that, if it doesn't work, it kind of ends up sending to specialists, and they start messing around with multiple medications and that kind of stuff. But they're the three key ones for fibromyalgia. Simple analgesics could be used. Recommend to stay away from opiates in this, even though the pain is quite debilitating for people. Adding opiates to this, in my experience, is going to lead to a medical dependence on opiates, and it is a downward spiral. I'd strongly recommend against people going on opiates for this type of condition. I don't think it helps. From a non-pharmacological perspective, look, patient education around the disease, like actually saying, yes, this is a real illness, apparently they did a study on it, and it helps greatly. They're like, oh, cool, I'm not mad, I'm not going crazy, I don't have some chronic infection, and just giving that patient education seems to, having the label is part of the treatment. So that was a really interesting finding for me. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And it's commonly skipped. And if people don't get that and say, yeah, this is fibromyalgia, and this is what we think is going on, and this is the treatment, and this is what you got to look for, that actually is a treatment in itself. Regular low-impact exercise seems to have a good effect for people. Good sleep hygiene is important. So if they're dosing up on caffeine or using computer screens, or generally, that's all going to make the sleep more difficult, and it's already challenged for these guys. And then, interestingly, the recommendation is to use some kind of Eastern methodologies, such as yoga, Qigong, or Tai Chi, may be beneficial. So that's an interesting one. Hopefully you'll go into that around those forms. Outside of that, psychology for the depression and anxiety can help. So cognitive behavior therapy or other psychological interventions. If it's not working, rheumatologists would typically be, from an Australian perspective, okay, go see the rheumatologist. Let's see if they've got anything to add into this. Looking for other causes of the sleep problems. So have they got obstructive sleep apnea? Have they got restless legs? Looking for management of those. And then other options might be multidisciplinary pain clinics. But it all generally ends up as a chronic management disease, whereby they have ongoing symptoms that are decreased, but there is the cure. Getting rid of the symptoms is unfortunately relatively unusual for fibromyalgic patients. So that's the outlook from a Western perspective for fibromyalgia. What do you got, TJ?
I don't know, Tom. So as a review for the external causes of wind, cold, damp, dry sauna. Chinese does by opposites, put them in a dry sauna. If it's wind, cold, damp, it's hot and it's dry. That helps. Wind, cold, damp. That might do it just in and of itself. This Xiao Ho Lo Dan, XIAHUOLUODAN, is a beautiful formula what was it called? Minor clear the wind from the collateral formula.
That's cool.
God, I was fairly close. Minor invigorate the collateral special pill. Oh,
I love the
that's a
Chinese
good name.
names.
Eh? Also fun.
Oh,
It's fun to say Xiao Ho Lo Dan, but also the name of him. Minor special invigorate the collateral pill. You get the idea of it as far as dispersing the wind, cold, damp from the exterior. That's a wonderful herbal formula. Dry heat treats exterior wind, cold, damp. It's not truly fibromyalgia in my book, personally, but it's a very common syndrome that would reflect very similar symptoms. Eventually, if the person keeps exposing wind, cold, damp, then it'll become global. The dry sauna will still help. Acupuncture-wise, for all of these, for this one, wind gates, open the wind gates, release the exterior, triple burner 5, Li4, that type of thing. For the interior access to damp heat, purge damp heat, primarily through the bowels and through the urine. You'll know somebody's got damp heat fibromyalgia because I have dark urine. Dark, hot urine would be the harbinger, the diagnostic to really show they got damp heat. Once again, this isn't a very common etiology within fibromyalgia. To clear damp heat acupuncture-wise, it's similar to some of the other clearing damp theories. Well, let me give an overview. The 5 therapeutic methods of Chinese medicine are herbs, diet, acupuncture, massage, and movement therapies, which is the Qigong Tai Chi. So as I talk about these different syndromes, I'll be talking about the 5 different therapeutic methods. Damp heat as a pathology is best treated through diet and herbs. Acupuncture helps, but you really need diet and herbs. The damp heat, most likely, is either coming from an outside source, the person's lived in the Philippines too long, or it's they really like spicy, greasy wings, and they really like ranch sauce with spicy chilies. And these are all damp heat examples. Alcohol and beer is also damp. It's liquid and it's hot. There's alcohol. So any of these external sources of damp heat dietarily should be removed in a damp heat situation. And then herbally, damp heat is treated really well. Get an herbalist if you want to do damp heat clearing. For the internal excess of the liver qi stagnation leading up to qi and blood stagnation to pain, free up the liver and move the qi and move the blood. So this is where physical exercise is going to come in really well. People that are relieved through physical exercise, they've got a stagnation that needs to be dispersed, and the cardiovascular exercises moves the blood. So these people are going to have a good amount of relief with the physical exercise. Acupuncture helps really well for liver qi stagnation. Liver 3, liver 14, Li4, gallbladder 25, gallbladder 34, all these are great to release the liver and the gallbladder. To release the liver, one should also release the gallbladder typically, because the liver clears through the gallbladder, and if the gallbladder is really tight, the liver won't be able to clear itself out as easily. Herbally, I mean, treating blood stagnation, shui fu ju yu tong is a herbal option, or even just going to Shishao San, the sudden smile formula. There's just a couple of herbal formulas that's really great to disperse the blood stagnation. Tao Huang Si Wu Tong is just, I mean, which I brought up in PMS, which is a tremendous amenorrhea formula. Could also treat global physical pain from blood stagnation, which is one more thing I forgot to mention in differentiation. Physical trauma could lead to enough blood stagnation that would lead to a sequela of fibromyalgia from blood stagnation. So that is another one I forgot to mention. I did forget that. Sorry, I forgot. That was one I should have said. And once again, these same herbal formulas would be useful in that case.
And there's definitely the link. We see like fibromyalgia commonly showing up with people with multiple difficult stresses in their past, like so physical trauma, domestic violence,
physical
stuff like
trauma. And then, as we mentioned, the emotional trauma will cause liver qi stagnation. God damn it! How am I going to get my plan through? Oh God, fuck! I'm going to get my plan through. How am I getting my plan through? When you get that, that's the subtrack in their head. Like most people have ambassadors by which they present themselves to the world, but there's a subtrack of thought emotion in their being. If that one's going, that'll create liver qi stagnation. And if the subtracks worry, oh God, what about, oh wow, what about, that'll deplete, that emotion will deplete the spleen. So yeah, the different emotions will certainly lead to this, plus physical traumas. And then, so going on from liver qi stagnation could create qi and blood stagnation. Liver qi stagnation can also lead to liver overacting spleen with the spleen deficiency. Chai Hu Shugan one is the best herbal formula typically for this. This is somebody whose anger or plan has cut them off from their sense of nourishment. Either they work through meals or they eat hot foods to stimulate their liver and they pass too much heat and damp through their liver. Somebody who's just eating spicy wings. Oh, this is a great example. I have one of my clients is a seamstress, and he works all night long drinking whiskey and Tabasco sauce. And that's how he stays fired up to work all night long. It's an extreme example, but it happens. It's one of my clients I've seen. And therefore, this is an example of somebody that's using the spleen stomach to fire up the liver to keep the plan going.
Whoa.
That'll lead to a liver overacting spleen stomach. That'll deplete the spleen eventually. In any case, the behavioral side of it. Herbally, Chai Hu Shugan one. Acupuncture-wise, CV12, it's right between the two, harmonizes the liver and the spleen. Spleen 6 crosses the liver and the spleen together. That's one place in the body where both meridians go. Great place to harmonize. You could also do spleen 3, liver 3 to connect the liver, spleen, and harmonize. You also just tell the person, chill out and eat every once in a while. Hey, listen to your body. Take a rest. Put the hammer down. Take some time. Sit under a tree. Get a ukulele. I'm from Hawaii. We sing a lot of yeah, they're really earthy people, you know. Hang out with earthy people. I've prescribed that to liver overacting spleen people. I'm like, you find yourself a big earthy person to hang out with. Be quiet. So watch the way they work. Seriously. I've done that one before. All right, so spleen qi deficiency is not only because liver overacting, it can just be somebody who's trying to lose weight and only eats salad. It could also be somebody who has the wrong type of constitution that takes the wrong type of diet. For instance, somebody who's a predominance towards spleen damp, and then they decide to go cold, raw food diet type. Might be a good diet for a person who's young and hot and warm, but let's say a mom who's given birth and the heat's gone out and they're tired and they're exhausted and they're puffy and they're pale. That's not the time to lose weight by going on a raw food or eating salads only. That'll lead to fibromyalgia. So with just a straight up spleen qi deficiency that's got nothing to do with the liver, tonify the spleen. 6 gentlemen's decoction is a great formula. 4 gentlemen's decoction, Su Junsi Tong just tonifies the spleen. Liu Junsi Tong, 6 gentlemen's decoction, tonifies the spleen, warms the spleen, and drains damp. Fabulous, totally soft, it's specific, it's great. Now there's Shen Ling Baiju San, which has a few additional herbs for the cases of insomnia. So any of the Liu Junsi Wan variations, Su Junsi Tong, Baiju, it's Ren Shen Baiju Fuling Gansao, 4 herbs. These are really good fibromyalgia herbal treatments for spleen qi deficiency. They work really fast. And they work long time, and it treats the underlying pathology so that it doesn't come back. Now, that's something.
That's cool.
That's something. So, yeah. All right, we only got a few more, and then we can get into the furosemide subject. I wanted to go into there, but let's finish it up. If the spleen yang's been deficient long enough that it goes to kidney yang qi deficiency, now you have to tonify the kidney yang as well. Fu Liu, kidney 7. Moxa over the kidneys, bladder 23s. Stimulating kidney 27, 17, and 6 is a wonderful combination to stimulate the kidneys. So if it's gotten to the point that the person's got day-baked diarrhea, impotence, seminal urination, nocturnal urination, any of those things, you got to tonify the kidney as well. And if they got a predominance of the insomnia, then the spleen deficiency has been so long that they are not generating enough blood. And now the heart blood's deficiency, and then we got to tonify the heart. So how do you tonify the heart? Get the person to fall in love. I don't care, something. I got one lady, I got her to get a small dog. She just really needed to be held. Her earth was blown. She was angry, frustrated. She just wanted to be held. Get a small dog. She's feeling much better now. She's a lot happier. Her blood's circulating. Her heart's opened up. She's sleeping better at night. The boat's turning around. So heart chi deficiency. Get the person to smile, to laugh, and then tonify the blood. Bajian Tang is a fabulous treasure decoction. It's got the Siu Junsi Tang, that four gentlemen's decoction, Renshen, Baiju, Fuling, Gansao, but it's also got Siwu Tang, the four herbal decoction to tonify the blood. Xuanshang, Dangwei, Baishao, Gansao? Could it be that simple? I mean, I should know Siwu Tang, but regardless of that, regardless of my fluidity of the herbs at the present moment, this is a wonderful formula to tonify the spleen, to generate the blood, to nourish the heart. If you got insomnia issues, you got to throw in Heart 7, Shen Men, Spleen 6, On Mian, and yeah.
That's nice.
That's the herbal. Qigong for fibromyalgia, yeah, sure. It's not my go-to. I mean, just to get to do Qigong, to be in a class with other people and to be connected and to be nourished. Now that's medicine for a spleen Qi deficiency person. It's hard to do with just Qigong. We're talking about human connection here as a main cause. One of the greatest problems in our society is loneliness, as I hear for a lot of people. So human connection warms the heart, warms the spleen, increases digestion, eating more food, taking more time with food. These are the type of things that can really help.
Yeah, I got an image there of the Chinese people in Australia sitting around these long lunches at the Chinese restaurants, and they just hang out and they spin the lazy Susan around, and they really connect, and the food, and it's not a rushed meal of 10 minutes. Let's get back to work and do something.
And did you know that they're choosing different meals based on the season and the weather outside?
No, I did not.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, spicy foods in the wintertime. All sorts of fruit, melons, and peels in the summertime. Beans in the spring. In the fall.
That's cool.
Yeah, and based on, if they got a cold or a flu. One of my Chinese dietary masters, she was hired by a Chinese restaurant in Portland, Oregon to design their menu with Chinese culinary dietary meals.
That's cool. That's so cool.
Isn't that great?
It's great.
Yeah, it's great. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So somebody to get fibromyalgia, this pathology has been going on for a long time, most likely. Most of the time, with proper diagnosis and observation, these symptoms can be treated well in advance of any fibromyalgia developing. And at that point, it's much easier to treat.
That's so cool. Yeah, my takeaway so far is like the diagnosis is like diagnostics of fibromyalgia from a Chinese perspective are extremely helpful in terms of going to the right treatments, even without the Chinese stuff. Even if we as Western MDs have some insights into what's going on, there are things there that can be, hey, stop eating the iceberg lettuce if it's the spleen Qi deficiency. I mean, that's
no ice cream.
No ice cream.
No fruity milk cocktail. No. Sorry. Tater tots and ranch, out.
So let's that's fine. I love it.
These are dietary. It's not always the case with everybody. It could be emotional, it could be physical, traumatic. But being that this is primarily a spleen-related pathology, diet has a bigger play in this particular syndrome.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's really cool. Thank you. Really interesting. And I have noticed the theme over the podcast so far, that it's reversed the opposite. Like it's whatever's going on, we'll do the opposite across the 5 modalities. It's really great.
So just to close the furosemide subject, it worked short-term for her, but her kidney chi is already so depleted and her spleen chi is already so depleted that the waters just keeps building up and it keeps pouring out, and the kidneys are getting more deficient. That lower orifice of the kidneys going into the bladder that's opened through diuretics releases kidney qi as well. So it's actually weakening the kidney function. So she's gone now into having no bladder control and to have to wear diapers. And it works as long as she's on the diuretics, but she hates it because she can't go out anywhere because she's peeing all the time. So she's got to wear diapers all the time. So there's this whole other side effect. And then when she doesn't take it, because the underlying pathologies haven't been treated, the water just backs right up. And it's just like watching a fuel gauge. You can see the ankle swell, the knee swell, the hip swells. It just like, whoop, it just like, so it's working, but because it's not addressing any root, it's not changing anything. And actually, because of its mechanism and function, it's actually worsening the pathology. Not to mention, she's not looking under the situation to say, what's going on in my life, emotionally, personally, dietarily, that's giving rise to this organ dysfunction, which is what we call the gift of the disharmony, which is I don't want to sound cold, but quite often when something goes wrong in the body, it's an opportunity to look within to say what's going on that's going wrong. Instead of just saying, okay, it's a flat tire, change the tire. Or the strap's broke, cut the strap.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Or they're depressed, give them SSRIs. I mean, yeah, but isn't there a reason why they're depressed? You know? I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's just hormones, but maybe there's not passion or love or joy or excitement or inspiration or agility or whatever. Or maybe it's just life's really hard. Which of us doesn't get, knocked in life? I hope everybody never has hard things, but most people seem to have to go through hard things. So I don't know.
I love that.
That's my furosemide. That's my furosemide thing. It worked, and I was so impressed. We were talking a week. We're gonna have, bam! I could touch her body again, because before this I couldn't touch it. I was like, great. Oh, all right, we got a miracle cure. And then I'm like, well, I'm going to watch this for a little bit. I'm like, the kidney chi is waning. Now she can't control her urine. And she hates herself, and she was before, but it is draining the swamp. Sorry to borrow an American political term.
Draining the swamp. I really like that, because if somebody is listening and they're like, oh great, I'm just going to give furosemide to all my fibro patients, and they're, particularly if they're younger and know that there's consequence. I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Do it for a few weeks just to relieve the symptoms, and now treat the underlying pathology. Now we got game.
Yeah, nice, nice. Yeah,
it's not, I mean, like, in Chinese medicine, we have a balance of opposites. Anytime we tonify somebody's dampness, we also make them urinate. We don't just fill them with water. We drain them at the same time so that the body doesn't get bogged up. I mean, that's the main principle with Li Hui Di Huang Wan. It's a 6-herb formula. 3 herbs tonify the moisture, 3 herbs drain the dampness. And all the students are like, wait a minute, why are we draining damp? This person's dry. It's like, well, you can't just tonify their moisture, because it'll cloy up, get stuck, and they'll end up with fibromyalgia.
Gotcha.
If you're going to tonify, you got to distribute it and drain it. This is a system. You can't just. Yep.
That's
so
cool,
the herbs have a beautiful balance within them.
Yeah. It's very elegant. It seems very elegant medicine. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, furosemide will work short term, but it needs other things to balance it out to have a full treatment course. It won't do it alone. It won't reverse or stop it as a condition, which is a huge hope I've offered a lot of people, that the Chinese medicine with Western together could potentially treat the underlying root of the condition.
Right, yeah, because if you can't touch them, I mean, it makes it very difficult to treat them if you're a Zen Shiatsu practitioner, right? Like this.
Oh yeah, so that's okay. I've got herbs, acupuncture, diet, and movement. I've got 4 other branches. I just feel bad that they can't be touched, and also they're being told that this is an irreversible condition that we don't really understand, and it's got to be something wrong with your head. take some antidepressants.
That's, yeah. So from this podcast, essentially that has been shown
That's
that, hey,
cool,
this is not true. These are
Yeah.
resolvable.
Tonify
Particularly,
the spleen, free the liver, clear the damp heat. Tonify the spleen, drain the damp, tonify the kidneys, build the heart blood. Any ratio, it depends. You have to know what's what, but that's the overall picture. There is hope that this could be a reversible condition.
beautiful, beautiful. And that's hope for people out there with fibromyalgia. It's like,
Absolutely.
hey, yeah, what you got told about this being chronic and irreversible? No. It may, who knows? It is possible that there could be change in their lives and they live a better life, which is awesome.
I also hope through this that maybe they got an idea of what's causing it so they could stop it before it develops.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody's got spleen chi deficiency, they can work on it now before it gets to spleen over not controlling the water and the flooding of the water. Or if they see their liver chi stagnation, to free the liver. If they've got heart chi deficiency, to tonify the heart. Now we could treat it before it's gotten too big.
That sounds great. Stitch in time, hey?
Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Tom.
All right, mate. I'm about cooked on this one. I'm done. I think
Me too. I gotta go.
All right. I'll see you soon. Hey, see you next time. And thanks so much for everyone listening. TJ, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
And thank you, Tom, for joining me. Aloha.
Aloha.